Well, hello there, and welcome to the All the Hats We Wear podcast. This is episode 74. Today's episode is titled Steven Spielberg's Secret for Becoming What You Are Meant to Be. I love Steven Spielberg, and he's got a lot of fascinating tips on life purpose and creativity. I can't imagine someone more creative than Spielberg. So really the purpose of this podcast is to help entrepreneurs learn the time management skills you need to be joyful, productive, and fulfilled in all areas of life. So let's delve into Spielberg here. I did my research. I watched plenty of interviews and speeches he's given on YouTube. This book here, excellent. So as a child, he loved to scare his sisters, and he tormented them for months with a story about some kind of a World War II soldier rotting in his closet, which was like a plastic skull with goggles and a helmet and a flashlight that was shining on it. And he petrified his sisters about that. Another story I read in another book was that he cut off his sister's doll's head and served it to her on a bed of lettuce and tomatoes to scare her. That's mean. So he was kind of bullied as a child. He was kind of very thin and slender. He was not very athletic. He says that he was always picked last for every sports team. So he wasn't having too much success. Until age 6, he was brought to his first film. His dad brought him to see The Greatest Show on Earth, Cecil B. DeMille. I've never seen that. I'd like to see that. And there's a scene in that where two locomotives are going towards each other and they have a huge crash. So he wanted to recreate that when he got home. And he begged for a train set. So his dad got him a train set. And then when he had his train set all set up, he crashed them together because he wanted to experience that again. And then one of the trains was broken, so his dad had to fix it. Then he did it again. He wanted to see another crash. Then the other one was broken. So his dad finally said, hey, if this breaks again, I'm not getting any more trains. You're not going to have a train set. So then he got the idea to use one of the cameras around the house. I think it was some kind of a small video camera, and videotape it so he could relive that crashing and that collision over and over again. So that's what he did. And he had, filmed one train coming one side and then stopped it and then did the other one going the opposite way. And then it put it right in the middle and saw them crash. And he just revisited that. So that was kind of his start. Also, he talked about even being younger than that, playing with toy army pieces and stuff, and being on the floor on his belly and just looking. And it's almost like making different camera angles. When you're looking this way or tilting your head, you see from a different point of view. So he was starting to see things as a director would see right from way back when. At age 12, his father gave him a movie camera. And this became his tool and this is our biggest point of the whole podcast. We're going to get a bell ring for this one here. We ring the bell for our most important distinction of the podcast. So his camera became his tool that allowed him to make sense of the world. And I love that because it really resonates with my story with starting this All the Hats We Wear company. It was back in college days. I was visiting a buddy at Rutgers, and I was reading the book Time of Your Life. Well, it's an audio set and book by Tony Robbins. And he's the first one that really focused on roles and identifying all these different hats you wear. And I was so interested in that because that really, just like Spielberg's camera, became the tool that helped me make sense of things. And it reinvigorated my approach to life and my enjoyment of other people, really. So it was crucial. And I still find that to be the tool that I most rely upon now to be fulfilled and happy. His mother, Spielberg's mother, said that he would skip school and they would go out in the desert and film movies, him and his mom. So she was always very helpful and very supportive of that. In fact, when he finally got his Oscar award for Schindler's List, of course, he thanked his mom, and he calls his mother his lucky charm. So that's pretty cool. Also, around age 12, he made a film called Gunsmog, a takeoff of Gunsmoke, with his sisters, the neighborhood kids, some other Boy Scouts. And it was for his Boy Scout badge for photography. But he wanted to do a movie instead of a picture, so they allowed him. So he had all his friends be in the picture. And on Friday, they watched it. And he says they were howling with laughter. They were cheering. It was just a crazy, awesome, positive reaction. And that really gave him that bug. So pretty cool. He also said that it's okay for you in your early works, in your early days, to be derivative. So to be similar to other people, copy other people. But at some point, you do have to find your own voice. And I love what he talks about, the difference between consciousness and intuition. Consciousness shouts to you what you should do, whereas your intuition or your instinct whispers to you what you could do. And that's the voice you need to listen to, the whisper. A lot of times we hear about a pivotal experience for people that they were just knocked on their ass about whatever thing, and that's when they decided they want to be an actor or whatever they wanted to do. But Spielberg is the only one I've heard that goes the opposite. And he says that dream that you have comes not in a shout, it comes in a whisper. So it takes a lot more focus and attention to listen to that whisper of what it's telling you. And he also says that dreams come from behind. You don't see them first, that he found that they come from behind and they sneak up on you. He said he's one of the luckiest guys in the world because he gets to dream for a living. So Spielberg recommends taking the time each day to try to listen to that whisper of your instincts and your intuition. He says that you have to have all these qualities in what he calls your hero's quiver, your tool belt. And those are courage, love, support, and intuition. He says also heroes need a villain to vanquish. And he was telling the Harvard class that was graduating at the graduation ceremony that they'll come across plenty of villains. There's plenty of bad people in the world. So he also talked about the movie E.T. and how that came about. And I thought that was pretty cool, that he was filming Indiana Jones in the Nefta Desert in Tunisia, North Africa. He picked up a fossil, and it reminded him of the end of Close Encounters of the Third Kind, when they have that meeting, with Richard Dreyfuss and the alien. And he started to think, I wonder, what if the alien stayed here on Earth? It was like a switcheroo. And then he just started, brainstorming from there. And I love how you get one spark of an idea and then just go from there. He also says that E.T. really, in essence, is a story about his parents getting divorced and how he felt about it and how he really wanted a friend like E.T. to fill in the void for him. So that was really touching too. He recommends that you replace your fear with curiosity. And another fun fact I learned, that he played clarinet, and he actually played third clarinet on the Jaws soundtrack. So he played with the full orchestra there. And he talks about, they ask him what's a great story, and he says a great story is a beginning that keeps beginning. And I find that to be very true. Like, think about Jurassic Park and how that movie flows. It just starts and you're like, what the heck's happening here? And then you just keep asking, what the heck? And that's a story. That's a great story format. Story number 2. We lost a experimental film director named Benita Raphan. And she made very short experimental films, usually about geniuses. So that's interesting to me. Eccentric and Unusual Minds. She did films about John Nash, the mathematician, utopian architect Buckminster Fuller, So, and these genius films were very dreamlike and lyrical, suggestive. And she thought of herself as being a cinematic diarist. And she had a real talent for looking at the ordinary and finding something beautiful in it. Kind of reminds me of David Lynch, the director. He often found beauty in odd, strange things. Story number 3. I recently have been rewatching Game of Thrones. I'm on the 3rd season now, but I've seen it twice before, and such a great show. I'm really enjoying it, and I'm starting to read the books again. And there was one scene when they're all the women are stuck underneath the castle during the war, and they're trying to protect the queens and all the top ladies. And the queen says to one of them, tell me a story. So they're just kind of killing time. And I love this idea of, that the beauty of having someone just share stories, and how we don't really have that too much anymore. We're all very surface level and busy and constant motion and a hyper focus on the self. But for them, I guess it just struck me the way she said, tell me a story, because she was kind of bored. She wanted to be entertained, and she just gave her the floor. So in the spirit of this, I'll tell you a little story. This is one my grandfather told when he was a fireman for many years in Hudson, Mass. When he first got to the fire department, they didn't even have trucks or cars. They had horse-driven vehicles to bring all the water to the fire. So they had a couple horses, and they had just got their first motorized truck when he got there. But anyway, that weekend they retired the horses and moved them across town into a big field so they could just retire and, be horses. So that weekend there was a huge fire somewhere, and all the bells were going off. The horses heard the bells, went crazy, leaped the fence, and then showed up at the fire department ready for duty. So all the firemen were going, hey, look at these guys are back. Story number 4. Batching. This is a productivity tip. And this is where you combine, well, not so much where there's one way where you could combine like activities. So if you want to have a to-do list, you could combine them all, with the business things and, family stuff and health action steps. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about where you're separating your work. Like, for example, I read 3 newspapers every day, the Boston Globe, Wall Street Journal, and the New York Times. So really, that first read of the papers is more of a scanning and tagging the articles that I like, that I'm going to delve into more deeply after. The next stage is putting them in binders. Usually I watch movies during that. I love watching horror movies or bad movies, or, a TV series if I'm into it. I don't watch too much TV, but I'll watch shows that I really like Twilight Zone and Fantasy Island and Game of Thrones, Three Stooges. So it's just that I'm not trying to do everything at once. I'm not trying to read the article and spiral in and get what I want out of it. I'm just looking, what do I have to tag so I can throw the rest of the paper out? That's my mission. And this really helps to have that focus. It's almost like a assembly line approach. I also do this with my podcast training, preparation, I mean. Actually, right now I'm doing my 3rd podcast of the day. It's actually 11:45, quarter to midnight right now. And it's cool. But the way I'm doing it was I go through my binders. I have about 30 3-ring binders of all these clippings of newspaper articles and stories. Go through that, and I jot down on index cards how I'm going to put together the podcast episode. And then I just have my notes, and I just go through, bang, bang, bang. So that's another example where you're just having, that assembly line kind of mentality. Same thing with creating social media output and posts. I'm getting really into doing the planning and doing the outlining very specifically. And then now I have a grid for the whole week of all the short videos I need to do, the blog posts I need to do, what's going to be in the podcast. And then I can just execute and do all those at the same time. So I can just bang them out. And it really saves a lot of time, other than you're just constantly switching gears to do everything that you need to do with this one product. This is what I'm doing right now. Story number 5. This is a book. I didn't read anything about the book. It was a book by Luke Eplin about baseball in the 1940s, which I'm not interested in. But he was interviewed, and I thought this was interesting. He said that he was really inspired by Charles Shultz when he was young. His uncle gave him a whole complete collection of all the Peanuts comics from 1950 through 1975. And he used to read them over and over and over again. And what he liked was Charles Schultz's talent for the economy of emotion and story. He only had 4 panels to write his comic. So he really was able to have a lot of heartfelt emotion in there. And he had a very sparse style. Like he could suggest things with just a couple little pen lines, a couple extra squiggles. And he really respected that. Charles Schultz taught him how to get to the heart of things and cutting things down to their essence. And I find that to be very interesting. I remember an interview with Norm Macdonald, the comic, and he's a great comic. But he was sharing when he was young, starting off his comic career and working with Rodney Dangerfield, who he, of course, saw as a mentor. And, he asked Rodney about his set after he got off stage. And he said, how did I do? You can tell me the truth, Rodney. So Rodney said, you know what? You're screwing around too much up there. Meaning you're taking too many liberties. Like you need to tighten it down. Like there's a lot you can cut and remove from it. Just like in one of the previous podcasts where we talk about the art of reduction and subtraction, the science of subtraction. And the same thing there, like you can tighten up your set a lot. And I love that approach. Rodney would know, he was a master. I like when he says, nice kids. Now I know why tigers eat their young. Story number 6. This was kind of a quirky tale in the newspaper about a treasure hunt in Maine. This is a couple. I guess they get some money because they hid 20 grand somewhere in Maine. They took 3 years to look at sites and visit all places within Maine. And this is through Dirigo Treasures LLC. So they scouted locations. So this is really an elaborate hide and seek game. And this is to celebrate 200 years of Maine's statehood, being a state. So to find the treasure, you have to solve a secret, solve a riddle, and solve a puzzle. And you also need to get a deck of cards or flashcards. They're $20 or $40. So they report that this quest is legal, ethical, and environmentally responsible. And it kind of reminds me of my course, which you can get on the website for free right now. And it's called 5 Secrets Highly Effective Entrepreneurs Know About Time Management. And it's 5 modules. You're going to learn all kinds of different things to give you a system for living your purpose. So one part of this course is using index cards throughout the course. So instead of a workbook, I encourage people to use index cards. In this way, you can see all the different roles you play, the different hats you wear, all out in front of you, kind of like playing solitaire. And by having that perspective of being above it is crucial. And, a lot of times when you're in it, it's very, very hard. Like I know for my business, I was very happy. In a couple of weeks, I'm going to be starting. My company is going to be a project for my local business college, Nichols College. So they have a program where their students, the MBA students, basically have a consulting company, and they consult, like real companies in the area. So they're going to use my company, life coaching and speaking and presentations, as a project for there. So they're going to give me a full business plan and marketing plan. So I'm really looking forward to that. So to review, we talked about the great Spielberg. And if you get a chance to just look on YouTube, just look up Spielberg interviews, and like, he's got so many gems. Like, he really has a special way of organizing his thoughts. Really, really effective. And try to apply some of the things we talked about today. If you want more information, check out my website, allthehatswewear.com, so that you can become more joyful, productive, and fulfilled. Let me know what you thought of this episode.